As we're getting more information from sources about the intelligence work that went in the missile strike on Ayman al-Zawahiri, this is what President Biden said during his speech about the intelligence involved in the operation, as well as conversations with allies.
1 week ago, after being advised that the conditions were optimal, I gave the final approval to go get him. And the mission was a success. None of his family members were hurt, and there were no civilian casualties. I'm sharing this news with the American people now, after confirming the mission's total success through the painstaking work of our counterterrorism community and key allies and partners.
Just before the president spoke, I spoke with retired General David Petraeus. He not only served as commander of U.S. and NATO troops in Afghanistan, he's also a former CIA director. General Petraeus, appreciate you being with us. What is your reaction to this news?
Well, it's very significant. It is a triumph for our intelligence community. It is significant that one of the original leaders of al-Qaeda, a longtime international extremist and terrorist, has been brought to justice. It is perhaps, though, more symbolic, if you will, than it is of operational significance, noting that, of course, the real threat in Afghanistan, if there is one, of international extremism, is really the Islamic State affiliate there, the Khorasan group. That is the organization that is fighting the Taliban as well, that is causing the instability in Afghanistan. And that's the one that we really have to keep an eye on, even as, again, this is a very significant takedown of a very, very long time and very significant extremist leader.
The other thing it shows is the capability, at least, of the U.S. to strike in Afghanistan, which was a question raised a lot in the wake of the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. Then President Biden had talked about, fighting kind of over the horizon. I'm wondering what, we don't know a lot. There's not a lot of details about how this was conducted, but what would it take by way of intelligence, military coordination to accomplish something like this?
Well, obviously, you've got to get, if it is presumably a drone, you have to get it within reach of that drone's dwell time. We know that you can fly a drone from our bases in various locations in the greater Middle East and reach that location. Presumably, there were more sources put together than just the drone footage and so forth. It does show, therefore, that it is possible to do over the horizon. I don't think anyone ever questioned, though, the ability to conduct over the horizon operations. It's more the ability to really have a dense capability to do this, to really get sources that would be on the ground and could actually develop the kind of partners and so forth that are needed and are still needed at this point in time, of course, to root out the extremists in the Islamic State Khorasan group, which, as I mentioned, are the ones that really pose the international threat. Again, noting that this is a very big operation. Again, this is the other real leader of al-Qaeda since the very early days, way pre 9/11, who stayed with it ever since.
How have the Taliban? I mean, first of all, I guess the Taliban knew Zawahiri was living there, and I guess approved that. What are their capabilities about the ISIS affiliate, against the ISIS affiliate?
Well, they're battling the ISIS affiliate.
Yeah.
They're also battling some of the resistance forces, as they're termed. Let me highlight something you just mentioned, Anderson, and that is, of course, that, again, the leader of al-Qaeda is located in Kabul, indicating clearly that in a way Taliban didn't learn the lesson from allowing, again, bin Laden to have a sanctuary on their soil when the 9/11 attacks were planned in Afghanistan, after which, of course, they refused to expel him from their territory. And that, of course, that's why we had to go in. So it does reflect the continuing close relationship that clearly still exists between al-Qaeda's senior leadership, that small group of Zawahiri and the others that is still left, and obviously the Taliban senior leadership. The fact that he was in Kabul, I don't think is something that could have been possible without the Taliban knowing that he was there.
Is it clear to you why Zawahiri has been able to avoid being captured or killed so much longer than Osama bin Laden was?
Well, first of all, Osama bin Laden stayed essentially off the net for a very long time as well. And Zawahiri has essentially done what bin Laden did, which means that therefore he can't very capably lead the affiliates of Al Qaeda around the world. Essentially, they have been operating autonomously, independently. They may be part of the brand of Al Qaeda, but they certainly weren't under any kind of operational control. Again, noting that this is a very, very symbolic success to bring one of the last of the original Al Qaeda leaders who did so much damage around the world. Again, the East Africa bombings,
Yeah.
a number of the other bombings in North Africa, other exhortations of bombings elsewhere, not to mention, of course, being a core part of Al Qaeda when the 9/11 attacks were planned.
And he was increasingly, I mean, he's one of the group who was sort of increasingly radicalized in Egyptian prisons, wasn't he?
That's true. In fact, he actually led the Egyptian Islamic Jihad prior to this, EIJ, in the 1990s. And it was in the late 1990s that he actually merged with Osama bin Laden. Again, they having met him earlier on the battlefields in Afghanistan, fighting the Soviets with the Mujahideen.
General Petraeus, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Pleasure to be with you.